Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers, and I'm going to be talking about something that I've been sitting on for a couple of weeks now, which is my experience at ISTA Level 1, Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Experience. I'm recording this podcast at the same time I record the video for Instagram because, I wanted to talk about my experience, and I've kind of sat with it for a little while because of just digesting, integrating, whatever you want to call it, but just being with my experience, being with what I've been feeling since. But I know that a few people have been wondering what I'm going to say and what my experience is, and I think it's important to share these sorts of experiences, especially something like ISTA, where there's a lot of mystery around it. Deliberately, they're a mystery school, and for good reason, to be honest. Actually, after being there, level 1, I completely understand why they would cloak level 1 in mystery. Level 1, level 2, level whatever, all the levels are cloaked in mystery, I imagine. I'm going to start off by saying it was an incredible experience. Like as retreats go, and I went to another retreat just before that. I went to another tantra retreat just before that. And that was good. But this was like really, it still took things to a new level in terms of what was possible at a retreat. I'll start with just like some of the logistics. It was a beautiful venue, wonderful food. The food was fantastic. The food was really fantastic. I did mine in Holland. The chef was a guy called Conan, who was amazing, really lovely guy, but amazing food, which really helped actually. Knowing that every one of your meals is going to be really beautiful means that you don't have to think about food. Like, I'm sure some of you have been on retreats before, and food is like a bit of a thing because, it's often one of the pleasures of a retreat, but actually every meal was incredible, gourmet, wonderful vegan food. So where to start? The facilitators, actually, the three main facilitators, Triambika, Nehemiah, and Eugene, were wonderful. They really held a wonderful container. They were very much a stand for what you were being trained in, actually, which I really loved. It was like a real stand, and like it's a real feeling of they really deeply embody what they're teaching, but also they're really a stand for you getting what you need to get. And so that was amazing. Sometimes I talk about it and I start to get flashbacks, and I almost feel quite, I really remember things, tingles and like goosebumps and stuff like that. And I guess some of the things to talk about, and this recording and video is going to be somewhat not incoherent, but it just won't flow because I'm just going to say things as they come to me. I've got a few notes in front of me. One of the things that a lot of people, especially people in a relationship, are concerned about when it comes to ISTA Level 1, and actually I better say the full name. ISTA Level 1 is called the Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Experience, and it really is that. It's really a spiritual sexual shamanic experience. It does what it says on the tin. There's, as someone who's in a relationship, as like me, there was some relationship agreements and boundaries that had to be put in place beforehand, before going with myself. And also, as you can imagine, that can be difficult when you're going to something that has the word sexual in it. And there was a lot of, there's a lot of sexual elements. I wouldn't say there was a lot, but there were some. Everything's optional as well. That's one thing to really say. It's like everything is optional. You can opt out of any part of it. As well, which I really think really important part of it. No one is forcing you to do anything. Everything is done by choice, and with your consent, actually, complete consent. Consent's a really key part of the training. But so I say, if you're thinking about ISTA and you're listening to this and you're in a relationship, be really honest and clear about your boundaries with your partner and come to a place where you're both happy. I think that's really important, that you're both happy and you're going into it with like, these are my boundaries and I'm happy to stick to these boundaries and be with these boundaries. That's a really important part. One of the first things we did on the first day, I think, and I don't think I mind sharing because you can find this online, is the ISTA agreements are so fucking watertight and the way they're delivered is so good that you really feel them. You can question them, you can ask stuff about them, but it really leaves you in a place of like, I understand all these agreements. I'm agreeing to these because I get them, I understand them, and I'm with them. It really sat with me for the rest of the training, like some of the agreements, like you're really agreeing to these, like, I'm in agreement with these. I understand these. They have a purpose and reason behind them, especially as the training unfolded, you understand even more. And I think for me, one of the things that really came out of the agreements is like around our personal responsibility for our experience, like this radical responsibility for what happens to us, right? And that we do to other people. Because ultimately we do have the power of saying no and stop, and I don't want that. And those things, and even physically we can stop people in our lives from doing things to us. And I really saw how for myself, how often I just allow things to happen in my life, like allow people to do things or say yes to things. This is something I was going to talk about. It's like saying yes to stuff that I don't really want to say yes to. And it's a bit like, what I'm realizing is, I'm just moving my hat because it's covering over the earpiece. I don't have to. I can say no. You know, sometimes we have this feeling that we have to say yes to things and we don't want to. And it's like, actually, we have the fucking opportunity to say no. I don't want this thing. So we can say no. So I think it's a big part of the training for me was this personal responsibility for my experience, and being like, and only being responsible for my experience as well. Of like, sometimes we interact with people and we suddenly start becoming responsible for their experience because we kind of think that they're unable to look after themselves or inept in some way. And I see how when we do this, we kind of make other people powerless, you know, when we assume they're weak and powerless. So we have to rescue them and we stop them from having their experience. I think that's another really important part of the training. Like, if someone asks me what, I think that ISTA is, as the level 1 is a training, I think it's really about personal power. It's about you standing in your personal power in your life. Like, I think that's a really kind of important part of the training. It's like, be in your power. You can be in your power, and they give you tools to be in your power. So if there's anyone here who's like, I struggle to stand in my power and say yes confidently and say no and accept yeses and nos and things like that, it's like, this is a fucking training for you. It's a really powerful container for that. It was a really amazing training for that. You really get that. But the second part, and probably not the final part, I think is self-expression. Like, really expressing yourself, not from this, just from your mind, from your like pre-programmed words and things you've been told for your life, but actually really feeling your body and feeling the wisdom that exists there for you to then express that into words. I think that most of you probably think I'm super self-expressed and I can express myself really easily all the time. And I'm not. Sometimes, like, I don't show up on camera because I'm just like, I've got nothing to say, or I don't say the things I want to say, or I don't move my body in the way that I want to move it because there's this like, shame, I shouldn't, or I don't want to. A big thing for me was I don't want to overshadow other people. I don't want to make other people feel bad or feel bad for what I'm doing with myself, which is something that really came up a couple of times during the training, which was a really powerful insight to see. And I'd say that the probably one of the other parts I see the training about is really entering into sexual interactions with confidence, with personal power, and with self-expression, actually, in actually interacting sexually with people from a point of view of like, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and also being in a place where people will deeply respect that. And if someone doesn't, you can say no. Like, it's a really, that kind of sexual side, which I didn't engage in so much myself. Is something that's really powerful that they add in. Like, you might hear me say self-expression and listen and go, why is this, sexual part in there? It's like, actually, when you're there, you really understand why it's there, because actually it's probably the realm in our lives that is really skirted over in self-development. I think, you can see self-development about everything, right? But what's always left out is the sexual part, because no one wants to go there because it's icky and it's difficult and it's dangerous, and ISTA are willing to go there. And I think I really commend them for that. It's a really powerful way to move through a really powerful part of the training. Actually, it's like really really amazing to see. What else did I get? Self-expression, emotional expression, just feeling, being in the constant flow of feeling and releasing feelings. A lot of the work I do with the guys that I coach is around getting them to feel more. And I would say that I'm pretty good. I always thought I was really good, but actually I can really see there's room for me to feel more. Like, in being at the training, I can really see that, like, I can see where there's room for me to feel more and express more. So I imagine you're probably listening to this and be like, wow, how's there more room? And I was like, there's more room. There's a lot more room on my range to express and feel more. So that was really beautiful. And definitely since I've been back, that I've been definitely expressing and feeling more, expressing my desires, my wants and my needs a lot more than I was before. There's definitely something in me that would be like, oh, I really want something, but I'm not going to say it because maybe in wanting this, I might upset somebody. So I can just deal without it. And actually now I've been a lot more like, no, this is something I want. Okay, you don't want that. Okay, cool. Maybe I can get this somewhere else, or I can do something else or whatever. But it's like me wanting something doesn't have to hurt somebody. Like it's an assumption I have that me wanting something is going to hurt somebody or upset them, and I don't want to have to deal with that. But actually I just feel more like, oh fuck, I'm going to go after what I want. I'm going to go after what I desire and what I need a lot more. So that's definitely something that's there. I came away with around expressing anger. There's various times that anger was really a welcome thing to express and release. And I see how this is probably something I'll be doing for the rest of my life, like learning to express anger. It's just going to be something, because I spent so much of my life learning not to express anger because it was dangerous or bad. So I can definitely see there's a lot of room for that. But then on the flip side, there's this something I noticed before I went to the retreat in my life was like joy, not expressing joy. Like even, something as little as like getting coaching clients and being happy about it. I just like half smile, half happy. I'd be like, yeah, that's good. That's cool. I like acting like I'm too cool to just be actually really fucking happy. So that's something that really, there were moments when I was there, I was just like, things happen. I was just like, I feel incredibly joyful. Saying yes to what you want and saying yes to what is good for you, but also saying no to what you don't want and no for what is not good for you. Like you can just say no to things. Like I know it sounds so simple, but so often we say yes to things we don't want to do out of obligation, or that we don't even think, we just automatically say yes. Like I had a real embodied experience on the retreat where I said yes to something, and then I was sitting in the action, and I was like, I don't really want this. I didn't really think about saying yes, and now I'm in this. Like, what do I do? Blah, blah, blah. My body froze up, and then, I had a conversation with the people, and we were like, I was like, I'm now a no. And they were like, okay, cool. And it was okay. No one died. Like, it was cool. We all understood that we can change our mind. So it's this idea that you can really say yes and say no, and you can change your mind. And when you bring that into the realm of sex, right, that's deeply empowering for a lot of us, because we have this idea that once we say yes, yes is binding, but the no can be, the yes can be revoked at any moment. What else? Something else that came up for me is like this assumption that I make about other people, that when they say yes to things, I don't fully believe them. I'm always like, oh, I'm not sure. Are they really saying yes? Maybe they don't want to say yes. Maybe I need to check in other ways. I'm looking for other clues. And this comes down to the fact that I do that. I say yes to things I don't want to say yes to. And then I'm kind of tolerating it, and I'm allowing it, and I'm just like not really fully wanting it because I feel like I have to say yes, or I should say yes, or it's polite to say yes, or anything like that. And I realize I don't fucking have to do that. I can stop and be like, do I want to say yes to this or no to this? And this might all sound super simple, right? But you're doing this in your life constantly. Constantly we're saying yes to things. Constantly, we don't really want to be involved in. And I think it's a really important thing for us to start looking at for ourselves, to listen to you if you're listening to this. There were some big lessons around love, and I don't even know how to describe it really. It's like love is this really infinite thing that exists, right? There's a lot of love out there for us to tap into, whether that's giving that to somebody. We can give love. We can give a lot of love if we want to, right? But we often become stingy with giving love because we're like, oh, I want it in return. If I don't get it in return, I'm not giving it. And it's like we're in this kind of very scarce mentality about love and giving love. And obviously, time is not infinite. And I'm not talking about time, I'm talking just about love. So it's like if I'm loving someone over on my left, right, and there's someone I also care about on my right, it doesn't mean because I'm giving the person on my left love that I no longer love the person on my right. Because often we feel like that. It's just like I'm directing my love in that direction. So that person on my right could go and get love from elsewhere, or they could make a request to me to experience some love with me, and I could give it to them. Maybe I give to both people at the same time if we all agree and are consenting to that. And when I say love, don't misconstrue what I'm saying, collapsing love into sex, because I'm not. I'm just talking about love. And love can be sex, it can be touch, it could be a massage, it could be dinner. you know? And then if there was someone behind me, they don't have to then become jealous of this love that I'm giving, right? Because they're not getting any. Because that's something we also get with people, right? We become. So it's like there's this, if we want to give love, there's so much more for us to give. And when we receive love from different people, it's almost like, and this is really me talking for me, it's like we get these different flavors of love. And it's like they add to who we are, and we get to experience those in our body from somebody. And they may even, for someone, like unlock parts of their ability to love that they didn't know they had. And that definitely was something that I experienced when I was there, and I've taken back into my relationship and come back to also, since I've been home, I feel this added capacity to love. You know, I've left with an added capacity to love, an added capacity to be clear with my boundaries and with my yeses and nos. I've left with an added capacity to feel and express, you know, and I'd say that's that's the pretty good thing to leave with, right? Even for myself. Something I also realized is that I'm probably, and I never forget that a friend of mine, Massimo, he said this on a podcast or a live we did. He said he was a polyamorous person in a monogamous relationship. And when he said it, I didn't fully grasp it at the time. But during the retreat, I really got that. I was like, that's who I am as well. I'm a polyamorous person. Like, I can love many people, but I'm in a monogamous relationship. And it was just like, yeah, that really feels really true for me. And I was like comfortable with really taking that on. A few other things. I really saw this like love and desire for feminine energy that I have. Like, I can really lap up and drink up feminine energy, especially when it comes to me in the ways that I enjoy it. You know, all day I feel very comfortable in it. It's like being in a bath of beautiful salt and lovely bubble baths to me. I can just kind of lay in it. It's a really beautiful experience for me. But I saw the converse for myself is like, there's still some work for me to do, is an uncomfortability with like especially strong masculine energy. There's a part of me that still moves away. And I wonder if that's, you know, a bit of a throwback to my childhood days. And something for me definitely to kind of work with. It's like, even the facilitators, 2 of them were men. And like, I could see the strength in how they communicate, how they delivered, you know, and I found myself being like, oh God, I'm a bit scared of them, you know, and I didn't fully move towards them and communicate and stuff. It's, you know, there's also some stuff there for me I saw around like fear of being judged by them in certain ways and so forth. And that was all my stuff, right? It's all my stuff, not their stuff, my stuff. Yeah. What else is there? I think probably one of the last things I say is like, there was one practice we did around brotherhood, which was really, really moving for everybody. You know, the men and women that were there, it was like really moving around brotherhood and how we don't always understand how men feel and men's experience. And it was just such a moving practice around that. Like, as a man, and I know how men feel because I speak to men every day, but I know for some of the women that were also at the retreat, like having listened and seen the men in that practice, they were just blown away by like, shit, men have to carry so much. Like, it's such a heavy weight and burden of being a man. And I know some people are going to go, oh, I don't agree with you, but actually it's a really, it was really the sense that we got. So it was a really beautiful practice around brotherhood and looking after each other and being a warrior for love as well. Being a warrior for love and really standing up for what's right and just in the world, and like how that's all our responsibility. It's not just other people's responsibility. Like, everybody can be a warrior for love in their life and stand up for, you know, what's right and what's just. Even if it's standing what's right and just for you, doesn't have to be, you know, going to war. You can go to war with your own mind and your own shadow and things like that. That was a really moving practice. I got to really experience how when we're really present, I say as a man, because this was a personal experience I had, like when we're deeply present and we're really aware and we're feeling ourselves and other people, that can be so healing for other people. So healing for other people to be in the presence of that, to communicate with someone who's really, really present, really grounded, really like in this moment for themselves and for the other person. It can be incredibly healing to do that. And I think this is where I see like masculinity, and a lot of the masculinity I work with men is like, how can we be more present, aware and feeling? Because when we start to embody those things, so much of the toxic things that are happening in the world start to fall away. But on the individual level, like you can richly leave people feeling like, wow, I feel really healed by speaking to you, or I feel really safe in your company, being safe around you. So those are things really worth cultivating. And this episode has got a bit longer than I was expecting, but I'm going to keep going. Connection. I realized for me the beauty of connection, and like really in-person connection. I spend a lot of my time on Zoom coaching people. In the normal week, it's quite easy for me Monday to Friday week to maybe the only people I've really interacted with, I can probably count on less than my hand, like in person. So to be in a room with 60 people, around 60 people for 7 days, it could have been overwhelming. And at times it was a bit overwhelming, and I just took myself out and got what I needed. But actually, like, man, it was so beautiful to be with people and to feel people. And it really charged me up energetically to be with people. Like I felt very energized the whole week. And when I came back, just being around people and feeding off each other's energy in the most amazing way, and sharing and being open and kind and loving to everyone that was around you, like listening and feeling other people. And it really made me realize how much I love connection, and how connection is so, so important to me in my life, and so nurturing to me. And it sounds so obvious, but it's like, there's scientific studies that show how important connection is. Like something as simple as, I think, seeing someone you love is like an important thing to do in the morning. It just makes us feel so much better. So I'm just imploring people, it's like, go and seek connection in person. Whether that's a yoga class that you do online, go and do it on person. Like, go and do things in person more. Something that I've really taken away is like, these in-person retreats are amazing. In-person workshops, like, go to them. If I was in the UK, I'd probably be running a few now, and I may even come back and run some in-person workshops and retreats, because I just think it's so important. I think it's so nourishing and so transformational as well. And because of the amount of connection I got, coupled with the amount of love that was being shared amongst people in the various ways, like I just came back super open-hearted and still feeling that kind of ability to put words to what I'm feeling for people. I had a wonderful experience. I saw a friend a few days ago, and I really expressed the gratitude for our conversation, or with also I'm expressing, how much love that I had for her and our relationship, and where I want it to go, and why it's important to me, and how it's making me feel. And this is coming from someone who, God, 5 or 6 years ago, like, you would never have heard me. You would have never heard me speaking like this. Like, if one of my ex-girlfriends listened to this, she would put a good few of them would probably nod their heads and go, yeah, he didn't speak like this. So like, yeah, amazing retreat. I've got a lot of respect for the work they do over at ISTA. I'd love to incorporate some of that work into my own work. So much time. It's amazing. If you're thinking about the retreat and you're, on the fence, or you're not sure, feel free to reach out to me. I'd happily talk to someone who's thinking about it. I'll put the link to level 1 down in the show notes. And if you're on Instagram, then you know how to find it. But yeah, it's amazing experience. I think the one thing I would say is, if you are going in there, you're in a relationship, is if you're going to have boundaries, because some people are open there, some people are not, have boundaries that are slightly wider than you think you need. That would be my one piece of advice for people. Have boundaries that are slightly wider than you think you need. Just because, I'm just talking from experience, because you're going to get there and you're going to feel more open. And also the sexual part of the retreat is like, it isn't like sexual in the way that we know, in just like this kind of like, must have sex. It's not really like that. It's like really refined is a better way to put it. It can be really refined and really beautiful and really soft and really gentle. So like, if you're apprehensive about the sexual element part, just know that you can opt out of all of that. You can completely opt out of any of the sexual parts, completely. So if that's something if you've heard of it and you want to go, but you're like, the sexual part, I don't want to engage in that, then you don't have to. Everything is optional. Like, you can you can opt out of any of the exercises, the rituals, you can opt out of anything and everything there. Like you are fully in your personal power to say yes and no to everything that happens and say yes to anything that's happening. And I think that's a really, really important part. There's no coercion. There's no forcing. There's none of that. It's like you are a sovereign being who knows what's good for you. That is really the message. And they really train you in knowing that you're a sovereign being that knows what's good and not good for you. And it's a really powerful space to be in when you're in with 60 odd people and they're all coming from that place. Just imagine that in your life, if you were with your partner, with your friends, and you were all in this real personal power of your own sovereignty and you respected each other's sovereignty. Like you would just take yourself to higher and higher heights of being a human being. So that's enough for me. If you've got this far, then great. If you're a man and you've got this far, then I'm going to tell you that I've got a men's program coming up. It's going to be 8 weeks in June and July. If it's something you're interested in, if you're interested in some of the topics, the stuff that I've talked about here, I'm going to be weaving in a lot of some of these lessons and some practices, some embodiment practices. Please get in contact and we can talk about jumping on that. And, if this is the first episode you ever listened to my podcast or the first video you've watched on Instagram, then there's a lot more. I've got over 100 episodes you can go and listen to wherever you like. And yeah, if you want to get in contact with me, you can email me, hello@theauthenticman.net. And yeah, thank you for listening. Hope you got some value from this. Hope you got some lessons. Again, like I said, if you need help with the topic of going to ISTA, and particularly if you're going to ISTA and you have a partner, because this is something that I had to go through and the conversations and so forth, feel free to reach out for a little bit of advice. But until next time and next week, my next episode, my next video or my next post, you can find me there. Ciao, ciao.